Stop chasing. Start valuing yourself, the secret to earning true respect. The unexpected power of walking away. Hello and welcome to Practical Philosophy, where we explore profound insights into life, human behavior, and personal growth. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey of self-discovery and wisdom. We believe that understanding the deeper aspects of life can empower you to live more meaningfully. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone, once deeply appreciative of your presence, suddenly seems indifferent? Perhaps it's a friend who no longer makes time for you, a partner who takes your efforts for granted, or even a colleague who overlooks your contributions. The emotional pain of feeling unappreciated can cut deep. But here's the twist: trying harder to gain their attention often backfires. Instead, there's a simple psychological trick that can completely change the dynamic, one that puts the control back in your hands. In today's video, we'll delve into the profound effect of stepping back and refocusing your energy on yourself. We'll explore why this approach works, share real-life examples, and provide actionable steps you can take. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to reclaim your power and shift the balance in your relationships. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to gain some valuable insights. Ready to dive in? Part 1: The common response: trying harder. When someone stops valuing us, it often triggers an instinctive reaction to try harder. You may find yourself becoming overly available, constantly trying to please, or going out of your way to prove your worth. But here's the surprising truth: this approach usually backfires. The reason lies in human psychology. We tend to overlook the value of things that are perpetually within our reach. In relationships, this can manifest as taking someone's presence for granted, no matter how much effort they put in. Instead of earning appreciation, trying harder often diminishes your perceived value, reinforcing the cycle of being undervalued. Consider this: imagine you have unlimited access to a luxury item, perhaps an exclusive watch or a rare painting. At first, you're thrilled, captivated by its uniqueness and value. But as time goes on, with constant access, its allure begins to fade. The once cherished item becomes ordinary, losing the special significance it initially held. The same principle governs human relationships. When your presence becomes too predictable and overly available, people may unconsciously start taking you for granted. They stop noticing your true worth, not because it has diminished, but because familiarity often breeds indifference. Therefore, the key isn't in making yourself more available but in preserving your value through mindful presence and self-respect. Personal insight: reflecting on this, I recall a client who came to me for counseling. She had been in a long-term relationship where she constantly went out of her way to please her partner, always prioritizing his needs over her own. Despite her relentless efforts, her partner grew increasingly distant, leaving her feeling drained and unappreciated. Over time, her self-esteem began to erode, and she found herself caught in a cycle of trying harder, hoping to regain the affection she once had. After several sessions, we explored the concept of self-worth and how external validation often leads to an endless chase. She realized that by focusing solely on her partner's perception, she had lost sight of her own identity. Encouraged to shift her attention inward, she began to pursue personal growth, enrolling in classes, spending time with supportive friends, and practicing self-care. She also established clear boundaries, communicating what behaviors were acceptable and what weren't. Remarkably, as she reclaimed her individuality and confidence, the dynamic in the relationship shifted. Her partner, noticing her newfound independence and self-assuredness, started seeking her attention. But this time, she wasn't driven by a need to be validated, she had grown to understand that her value didn't depend on someone else's acknowledgement. Whether her partner chose to reconnect or not became secondary to the sense of empowerment she had gained. Lesson: trying harder to gain someone's appreciation often leads to diminishing returns and emotional exhaustion. True change happens when you redirect that energy inward, allowing yourself to grow and flourish independently. Instead of seeking validation, strive to become the best version of yourself, and let others decide whether they want to meet you on your level. Trying harder often leads to diminishing returns in relationships. While it may feel instinctive to intensify your efforts when someone starts to pull away, this strategy typically results in burnout and frustration. Instead of exhausting yourself in an endless pursuit of validation, consider the transformative power of stepping back. By doing so, you allow yourself the necessary space to regain perspective, prioritize your well-being, and shift the focus from external approval to internal fulfillment. Paradoxically, stepping back can often reignite respect and interest from others, as it signals self-respect and independence, qualities that naturally command admiration. Part 2: The psychological trick, stepping back. Stepping back doesn't mean playing manipulative games, far from it. It involves a conscious and intentional redirection of your energy towards self-improvement, personal well-being, and emotional independence. This is not about withdrawing affection to elicit a specific reaction, but rather about giving yourself the space to thrive independently of external validation. By stepping back, you create an emotional void that compels the other person to reflect on your absence, often sparking a renewed appreciation for what they once overlooked. This approach taps into a fundamental psychological principle: scarcity increases perceived value. When something is always readily accessible, it becomes familiar, and familiarity often breeds complacency. Humans have an inherent tendency to overlook what is constantly available, only truly appreciating its worth when it is no longer within easy reach. This psychological tendency explains why stepping back can be so powerful. It disrupts the pattern of being taken for granted by creating distance and introducing a sense of uncertainty about your presence. By stepping back, you are not simply retreating, you are actively redefining the terms of engagement. This shift changes the dynamics of the relationship from one where you are the pursuer, constantly seeking approval, to one where your presence becomes a valued privilege rather than an assumed right. The underlying message conveyed is one of self-respect and independence, qualities that naturally command greater admiration and interest. Furthermore, stepping back allows you to regain clarity and control over your emotions. It shifts your focus inward, prompting personal growth and fostering a sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on how others treat you. This internal transformation often radiates outward, attracting respect and attention naturally. Ultimately, stepping back isn't about changing others' perceptions, it's about elevating your own. The science behind it. According to numerous psychological studies on human attachment and interpersonal dynamics, individuals are significantly more inclined to value someone who exudes independence, confidence, and self-respect. This stems from the human need for reciprocity in relationships. When a person consistently displays self-sufficiency, it subtly communicates that their self-worth isn't tied to external validation. Such a stance creates a shift in how others perceive them, moving from someone who seeks approval to someone who commands respect effortlessly. Moreover, stepping back triggers a psychological phenomenon known as reactance, where people instinctively seek what they feel they are losing or being deprived of. By focusing on personal growth and withdrawing excessive availability, you signal not only your inherent value but also a readiness to prioritize your well-being over others' opinions. This often evokes a renewed sense of admiration and intrigue, as people naturally gravitate toward those who project self-assuredness and independence. Storytime. Let's take a relatable example from real life, something many Americans experience. Imagine a dedicated employee who always stays late, takes on extra tasks without complaint, and goes out of their way to support colleagues. Initially, their efforts are recognized. But over time, their consistent availability becomes expected, and appreciation fades. Eventually, they find themselves overworked and underappreciated. Frustrated, the employee decides to set boundaries, leaving work on time, saying no to unreasonable requests, and focusing on personal well-being. Soon enough, their absence is felt, and management begins to realize just how crucial their contributions were. This shift often leads to renewed respect and better treatment. Similarly, in personal relationships, we often see this dynamic play out when one partner consistently sacrifices their own needs for the other. It's only when they step back and focus on themselves that the balance begins to restore. The lesson here is clear: stepping back isn't about withdrawing affection or playing games, it's about reclaiming your worth and creating space for others to recognize it. Many Americans, especially those juggling demanding careers and personal relationships, often find themselves overextending in hopes of maintaining harmony. This pattern of constant giving can lead to emotional fatigue and a diminishing sense of self-worth. By stepping back, you signal that your presence isn't something to be taken for granted, but a valuable aspect of any relationship. In doing so, you not only create a healthier dynamic but also empower yourself to focus on personal growth and well-being. This shift allows others to see your true value. And more importantly, it helps you rediscover it for yourself. Actionable step: the next time you feel undervalued, resist the urge to chase. Instead, take a step back and redirect your energy inward. This doesn't mean you should close yourself off emotionally, but rather, it's an opportunity to cultivate your inner world. Focus on activities that spark joy, develop your talents, and nurture your personal growth. Try journaling to reflect on your feelings. Engage in physical exercise to boost your mood, or pick up a hobby you've always wanted to try. By doing so, you shift the focus from seeking external validation to fostering internal fulfillment. Remember, this isn't about manipulating others to seek your attention, it's a profound act of self-respect. When you prioritize your well-being, your confidence naturally grows, and others will begin to notice the positive changes in you. Over time, this shift often leads to more balanced, respectful relationships where your worth is recognized without you having to constantly prove it. Part 3: Setting boundaries. Another crucial aspect of handling situations where you feel undervalued is setting clear boundaries. A concept deeply rooted in psychological well-being. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out but guidelines that define how you expect to be treated. They protect your emotional space and reinforce your self-worth. Often, people stop valuing you because you've unknowingly permitted them to overstep these emotional lines, leading to imbalances in the relationship. Setting boundaries requires clarity and courage. It means identifying what behaviors are unacceptable and calmly communicating them without guilt or fear of rejection. This isn't about pushing people away but about fostering mutual respect. When you set clear boundaries, you teach others how to treat you, and in the process, you cultivate healthier, more balanced connections. Boundaries also prevent the emotional exhaustion that arises from constantly overgiving, allowing you to maintain your energy and focus on what truly matters, your own growth and happiness. In American culture, where the pressure to constantly be available, whether in relationships, the workplace, or even social settings, is overwhelming, learning to set boundaries is not just a skill but a necessity. Many people feel trapped by the fear of being perceived as selfish, uncooperative, or difficult when they say no. This internal conflict often leads to overcommitment, burnout, and a lingering sense of resentment. A common scenario involves those who are always willing to help, be it staying late at work, taking on extra responsibilities, or constantly being there for friends and family. Initially, these efforts may be appreciated, but over time, they become expected, with little recognition or gratitude. This can leave individuals feeling undervalued and emotionally drained. However, research consistently shows that setting and maintaining healthy boundaries is directly linked to higher self-esteem, reduced anxiety, and more fulfilling relationships. This is because boundaries are a tangible expression of your self-worth. They demonstrate that you value your own time, energy, and emotional well-being. When you establish boundaries, you subtly communicate a powerful message: you are not available to be treated poorly, and you won't compromise your sense of self just to please others. This act of self-respect not only invites others to respect you but also shifts how you perceive yourself. People often underestimate how transformative it can be to set limits in their personal and professional lives. In a world where overcommitment is glorified, learning to say no is an act of courage. Boundaries create space for deeper, more authentic connections, fostering mutual respect rather than one-sided dependency. They help maintain emotional balance, prevent burnout, and allow you to invest your energy in relationships that truly matter. Ultimately, boundaries are a tool for personal empowerment. They help you reclaim control over your life and emotions, allowing you to interact with others from a place of strength rather than neediness. Whether it's a demanding boss, a needy friend, or a partner who takes you for granted, boundaries remind both you and them that your presence is a privilege, not a given. Ultimately, boundaries are not about keeping people at a distance but about creating a healthier space for genuine interactions. They enable you to be present in relationships without feeling overwhelmed or taken for granted, which is a common experience for many people who constantly strive to meet the expectations of others. When you prioritize your well-being, you create a balance that not only benefits you but also enhances the quality of your relationships. In today's fast-paced, achievement-driven culture, particularly in America, the glorification of overworking and constant self-sacrifice has left many individuals feeling drained and disconnected from their true selves. This mindset often leads to burnout, resentment, and a diminished sense of self-worth. Learning to prioritize your needs is not just a radical act, it is a form of self-preservation and a step toward lasting well-being. By setting boundaries, you send a powerful message: you respect yourself enough to take care of your own needs, and you expect others to do the same. This practice invites mutual respect and fosters healthier, more balanced relationships, where both parties feel valued and understood. It's about finding the courage to step away from societal pressures and focus on what truly matters: your inner peace and personal empowerment. Why boundaries matter? Boundaries serve as a framework for healthy relationships. They help define how you want to be treated and ensure that others respect your emotional and personal space. When people see that you respect yourself enough to set boundaries, they either rise to meet your standards or naturally drift away, both of which are beneficial outcomes. Real-life example. A former colleague once shared how setting boundaries transformed her relationship with a demanding friend. Initially, she always said yes to every request, fearing rejection. Eventually, she realized that constantly overextending herself was causing resentment. She decided to start saying no when necessary. And while it was difficult at first, it led to a healthier and more balanced friendship. Practical tip: start by identifying areas in your life where you feel taken for granted. Pay close attention to the patterns that make you feel exhausted, unappreciated, or overlooked, whether it's at work, with friends, or in your personal relationships. Then, establish clear and non-negotiable boundaries. This doesn't mean being harsh or distant, rather, it's about respectfully communicating your limits and standing by them. It's natural to feel anxious or guilty when setting boundaries, especially if you're used to being the one who always says yes. However, those who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries and appreciate the clarity it brings. Remember, boundaries are not about keeping people out, they're about creating a healthier, more sustainable dynamic where mutual respect thrives. Over time, you'll notice that setting boundaries not only protects your emotional well-being but also helps you attract people who value and respect your presence. Part 4, the outcome, reclaiming your power. When you step back and focus on yourself, something remarkable happens. You reclaim your sense of identity and self-worth. This renewed confidence, independence, and strength become visible to those around you. People who may have once taken you for granted begin to see you in a new light. The person who didn't value you may either realize their mistake and attempt to reconnect, or they may fade away, creating space for others who genuinely appreciate and respect your presence. This shift is not just about how others perceive you, but also about how you perceive yourself. By stepping back, you send a powerful message. You no longer seek validation from external sources because you have learned to validate yourself. This internal transformation often leads to deeper self-respect and a greater capacity for personal growth, enabling you to attract healthier, more balanced relationships where your worth is truly recognized. Emotional insight. This process isn't about seeking validation from others, it's about reclaiming your inner power and redefining your sense of self-worth. Too often, people fall into the trap of tying their value to how others perceive them, a pattern that only leads to disappointment and emotional fatigue. By stepping back, you break free from this dependency and remind yourself that your worth is inherent, not something dictated by external approval. You are not defined by how others treat you, but by how you treat yourself. This realization fosters resilience and self-assurance, empowering you to stand tall in the face of indifference or rejection. It's a transformative journey where you learn to prioritize your well-being, invest in personal growth, and cultivate a mindset of self-respect. Once you stop chasing validation, you begin to attract the kind of respect and admiration that truly matters, the kind that stems from recognizing your own intrinsic value. In life, people will always value what they fear losing. By stepping back, setting boundaries, and focusing on your growth, you not only shift the dynamic in your relationships but also cultivate a deeper sense of self-worth. When you stop chasing others' approval, you break free from emotional dependence, allowing you to build relationships on a foundation of mutual respect rather than neediness. Practical solutions. 1. Set clear personal goals. Define what growth and fulfillment mean for you. Whether it's pursuing a new hobby, advancing in your career, or investing in your mental well-being, having clear personal goals gives you a sense of direction. 2. Develop emotional independence. Practice being comfortable with solitude. Spend time reflecting on what truly makes you happy. Journaling and meditation are excellent tools for fostering self-awareness and emotional resilience. 3. Communicate your boundaries. Clearly express what you will and won't tolerate in relationships. This isn't about issuing ultimatums but about creating an environment where your well-being is prioritized. 4. Surround yourself with supportive people. Seek out individuals who uplift and respect you. Building a circle of positive influence reinforces your self-esteem and creates a healthier emotional environment. 5. Celebrate your progress. Acknowledge even small achievements. This helps reinforce the habit of self-validation and reminds you that your worth isn't determined by external factors. Ultimately, stepping back and focusing on yourself isn't about isolating yourself from others, it's about creating the space to grow into the best version of yourself. When you value yourself, you attract people who truly value you, leading to more fulfilling and balanced relationships. A new beginning. Handling situations where you feel undervalued isn't about manipulation or seeking revenge, it's about self-preservation and personal empowerment. Respecting yourself enough to walk away when necessary sends a powerful message to both yourself and others: your worth is not up for negotiation. This mindset shift is crucial because it breaks the cycle of chasing validation from those who don't appreciate you. Your value doesn't diminish simply because someone else fails to acknowledge it. True self-worth comes from within. And it's about understanding that you are whole, capable, and deserving of respect regardless of how others treat you. Recognizing this truth helps you build a stronger emotional foundation, enabling you to focus on nurturing relationships that are reciprocal and uplifting. Most importantly, embracing this approach opens the door to meaningful connections. The right people, those who genuinely respect and appreciate you, will naturally gravitate towards you when you prioritize your well-being and stand firm in your self-respect. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Practical Philosophy for more deep dives into human behavior, psychology, and personal growth. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.